What happens when the man she thought would always come back doesn't? No follow-up text, no late night "I miss you." Just silence, not cold, not angry, just calm, complete detachment. That's when it hits her. Not the breakup, not the distance, but the realization that her control is gone. She underestimated you, thought your loyalty meant weakness, thought your consistency was permanent. But she was wrong, because you've stepped into something she didn't expect. Dark, masculine energy, the kind that doesn't explain, doesn't chase, doesn't seek validation. It just walks away, quietly, powerfully, and without a trace. You see, she wasn't waiting for your love. She was waiting for your reaction, your emotional return, the little dopamine rush of seeing you still care, still check in, still orbit around her. But this time, you didn't feed her ego. You didn't fold. You didn't chase someone who created distance and expected you to bridge it. You stayed still, and that stillness, that's what's breaking her now. This is the shift. The moment you stop leading with your heart and start leading with your frame, with silence, with control. You've stopped negotiating your value. You've stopped explaining your worth. You've stopped giving attention to someone who treated it like background noise. You didn't just stop texting, you cut the cord. If you've learned to hold the line, if you've mastered the urge to reach out when it serves no purpose, hit that like button. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop a comment below. My silence is strength. Now let's begin. Number 1. You always reached out. Until you didn't. She got used to you being the one who initiated, the one who followed up, the one who checked in after an argument, who reached out just to keep the connection alive. It didn't matter if she pulled away, ignored your effort, gave you breadcrumbs. You kept showing up, consistent, reliable, predictable. She didn't appreciate it. She expected it. That was her mistake, because then you stopped. No warning, no announcement, just silence. The texts stopped coming. The double replies vanished. The long emotional paragraphs, gone. And at first she didn't think much of it. She assumed you were just giving her space, that the old version of you, the man who couldn't sit with silence, would eventually crack and come crawling back. But you didn't. And that's when her confidence started to crumble, because for the first time, she's realizing the pattern's broken. You're not chasing, you're not explaining, you're not clinging to the hope that she'll finally wake up and choose you. That version of you, the emotional safety net, is gone. You reached your limit. You learned the cost of being the only one trying, and you made a decision, no more. The man she thought would always be available is no longer in the building, and now she's left with the silence she created, wondering how long she can stand it, before it breaks her instead. Number 2. The most dangerous man is the one who can walk away. She didn't fear losing you because she didn't believe you could leave. Not really. She thought you were emotionally tied to her, wrapped up in your feelings, too invested to ever walk away for good. That's why she tested you, pushed boundaries, pulled back just to see if you'd follow. And for a long time, you did, until you didn't. Now she's not just shocked, she's shook, because the man who walks away calmly, without a meltdown, without a threat, without a single dramatic gesture, that man is dangerous. Not because he wants to hurt her, but because he doesn't need her anymore. Because he's mastered himself. And that kind of man? He's rare. Unshakable. He knows his worth and refuses to prove it. You didn't announce your exit. You just stopped participating in a game that insulted your intelligence. That's power. You weren't bluffing. You weren't trying to scare her. You simply reached a place where her chaos no longer moved you. You let go, not with bitterness, but with certainty. And that terrifies her more than any argument ever could. The most dangerous man isn't the one yelling to be heard. It's the one who doesn't care if he's heard at all. Because that man doesn't fear loss. He understands it's part of growth, and he never confuses attachment with value. You walked away not to prove a point, but because she was no longer worth your presence. And now she's left replaying every moment, realizing too late The strongest move you ever made was the one where you didn't look back. Number 3, you felt the urge and still chose silence. Let's be honest, there were moments you wanted to reach out, moments where the silence felt unbearable, where you scrolled through old messages, hovered over her name, typed something out and deleted it. Not because you missed her, but because part of you was still wired to fix things, still hoping that maybe, just maybe, this time she'd get it, that she'd respond differently, that the cycle would finally break. But then something stronger kicked in: discipline. You didn't act on emotion. You didn't let the loneliness drag you back into a situation that disrespected your worth. You sat in the discomfort and you held the line. That's what separates the reactive man from the powerful one. The weak man chases relief. The strong man chooses restraint. Dark masculine energy isn't about never feeling. It's about feeling everything and still controlling what you do with it. You felt the urge to text. You felt the pull, and still, you chose silence. You let the moment pass. You remembered who you were before her, and you realized no one is worth breaking your own peace to prove a point. She expected your emotions to override your self-respect. She was counting on the old you, the one who needed closure, who needed connection, who couldn't stand the idea of letting go. But that man is gone. And now, you don't move from impulse. You move with purpose. That kind of self-control, it's rare, and it's lethal. Number 4, she read the message you never sent. You didn't text her, you didn't call, you didn't explain why you pulled back. But don't get it twisted, she got the message loud and clear. Because silence isn't nothing, silence is everything. It forces reflection, it creates tension, it makes her fill in the blanks, and the human mind hates unanswered questions. Now she's reading into everything: your absence, your distance, your indifference, trying to decode the meaning behind the message you never sent. And that's what's eating her alive. When you used to text, it was predictable, familiar, safe. She knew you'd eventually reach out, even after she pushed you away. But now, there's nothing. And that nothing is making her feel more than your words ever did. That's the part she never understood. Attention is reassurance. It told her you still cared, still hurt, still hoped. But without it, all she has is space. And space turns into anxiety real fast when she's used to being chased. Your silence told her what your words never could, that you're done explaining yourself, that you're not here to beg for recognition or clarity, that you've elevated above the need to be understood by someone who never took the time to understand you. And now she's left replaying every moment, reading every line of the last conversation, trying to figure out if this is really the end. Spoiler: it is. And she knows it. Because this time, you didn't just walk away, you stayed gone. Number 5, you weren't cold, you were clear. She'll tell herself you turned cold, that you became distant, detached, heartless. That's easier for her to believe, easier than admitting you simply woke up. But you weren't cold, you were clear. Clear about your boundaries, clear about your worth, clear about what you will and won't tolerate. And when clarity enters the picture, it looks like coldness to someone who thrived in your confusion. She was comfortable when you questioned yourself, when you second-guessed your instincts, when you softened your voice to avoid conflict. That version of you was easy to manage. But when you got clear, when you stopped over-explaining, stopped seeking her approval, stopped needing to be understood, you became untouchable. That's the thing about clarity. It's quiet. It doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It doesn't try to be liked. It just is. And now, your clarity has become her discomfort. She can't manipulate it, can't twist it, can't bend it back in her favor, because you're no longer emotionally available for her games. Clarity is a boundary she never saw coming. It's the answer to every question she didn't think you'd have the strength to ask. And now, she's not dealing with the man who needed her. She's facing the man who finally understood himself and walked away without a trace of doubt. You didn't freeze her out. You just stopped setting yourself on fire to keep her warm. Number 6. You didn't need closure. You became it. She thought you'd reach out eventually, one last time, for closure, for clarity, for some final heavy conversation where emotions spill out, and maybe, just maybe, she gets to keep a little piece of your heart. But that moment never came. Because you didn't need her to give you closure, you became it. That's what happens when a man steps fully into his power. He doesn't wait for someone else to validate his pain. He doesn't sit around hoping for a conversation that never comes. He doesn't need her to admit she messed up or to finally say all the right things. Closure isn't something she gives. It's something you take when you decide your peace matters more than her explanation. You realized the truth. Even if she gave you answers, they wouldn't change anything. Even if she apologized, it wouldn't undo the disrespect. Even if she begged, it wouldn't erase the damage. So instead of circling back, you moved forward. Quietly, cleanly, completely. That's what shook her the most. Not your anger, not your silence, but your certainty. You didn't hesitate. You didn't send the follow-up. You didn't try to fix what you didn't break. You ended the story in your own mind, and that made you free. Closure doesn't come when she says it's over. It comes when you stop looking for her to fix what you were strong enough to walk away from. And now she's left holding the door open, while you've already built a new one. Number 7. Her ego's cracking. Yours is bulletproof. She never thought this would affect her. Not really. She figured you'd hurt, maybe sulk, maybe even lash out, but eventually come back around. That's how it always worked. Her ego was built on your pursuit, on knowing she could pull away and you'd still be there. But now, her ego is starting to crack, because the one thing she depended on, your attention, is gone, and it's not coming back. She's checking her phone more than she'll admit, replaying the last interaction in her head, looking for signs, for cracks, for anything that says you're still emotionally invested. But there's nothing. You're calm, unreachable, stoic. That's what's breaking her. Not your words, not your presence, but your absence. Not just physical, but emotional. Meanwhile, your ego isn't fragile, it's forged. You've been through the fire and came out colder, sharper, more precise. You don't need her recognition anymore. You don't need to be seen, because the most dangerous ego isn't loud. It's grounded. It doesn't beg for attention. It creates distance. It's bulletproof because it's no longer tied to anyone else's approval. She used to feed off your validation. It kept her feeling in control. But now the dynamic has flipped. Now she's unsure. She's unsettled. And you're unmoved. That's the power shift she never expected. You used to orbit around her world. Now she's spinning in yours, and she can't find the center, because the center is you, steady, silent, untouchable. Number 8, the chase is over, so is her control. She played the game like she always does, pulling back, acting cold, waiting for you to chase. That was her pattern. Withdraw just enough to spark panic, get you chasing again, make you earn her attention like it was a reward. And for a while, it worked. You were caught in the loop, always responding, always proving, always reacting. But now, the chase is over. And with it, so is her control. You didn't make a scene, you just stopped playing. You saw the pattern for what it was, a performance built on power imbalance. And once you saw it, you stepped back, detached. Not with bitterness, but with clarity. You realized you were feeding a system designed to keep you beneath her, always seeking, always questioning, always emotionally drained. Not anymore. Now the silence is deafening for her. She's used to being in control, used to setting the pace, deciding when to engage. But you flipped that dynamic by doing the one thing she never expected. Nothing. You're not reacting. You're not giving her any emotional leverage. You've removed yourself from the board, and now she's left with no moves to play. The man who stops chasing doesn't just take back his power, he exposes who was really dependent on the game. She wasn't in control of you, she was in control of your reactions. But now that you're no longer reacting, she's scrambling, because control without attention is just an illusion. And you just broke it. Number 9, she thought you'd wait. you built. She assumed time was on her side, that you'd wait, that you'd linger in silence, checking your phone, counting the days. She figured you were just giving her space, and that eventually you'd come back ready to talk, ready to fix it. But she was wrong. While she stalled, while she hesitated, while she played games, you got to work. You didn't wait, you built. Every day she spent trying to figure out your silence, you were stacking wins, mentally, physically, financially, emotionally. She thought the time apart was just a pause in the story, but for you, it was a reset. She thought she left you on standby. What she didn't realize is that you used that silence as fuel. That's the difference between you and her. She dwells, you develop, she replays, you rebuild. She hoped you'd stay in limbo. Instead, you found momentum. She stayed still, thinking she still had time to come back to the same version of you she left. But that man doesn't exist anymore. You didn't just move on, you moved up, quietly, consistently, without needing her to see it or validate it. And that's what stings the most. Because now she's not just facing your absence, she's facing your elevation. She thought you'd be right where she left you, but instead you turned your silence into strategy, your heartbreak into focus, and your pain into progress. Number 10, you didn't ghost her. You grew past her. She'll call it ghosting. She'll tell her friends you disappeared, that you just stopped responding, that you were emotionally unavailable, distant, detached. But let's be real, you didn't ghost her. You outgrew her. There's a difference. Ghosting is when someone vanishes to avoid accountability. Growth is when you walk away because the situation no longer serves who you're becoming. And that's exactly what happened. You didn't disappear because you were weak. You didn't fall silent because you were afraid. You went quiet because you saw it for what it was, limited, draining, going nowhere. You recognized that the version of you who needed her approval, her attention, her affection, he was gone, evolved, upgraded, and now she's standing there talking to the shadow of a man who no longer exists. She thought she put things on pause, that maybe she could come back later and pick up where it left off. But what she doesn't realize is, you didn't pause anything. You moved forward, with intention, with power, without looking back. She stayed the same while you changed the game. And that's the part she'll never be able to undo. Now she's haunted, not by your messages, but by your absence. Not by your presence, but by the man you became when she stopped deserving access to you. You didn't ghost her. You grew past her. And once a man outgrows a woman like that, there's no return, no text, no moment that can bring him back. You were never hard to love. You were just loving too hard in the wrong direction. But that version of you, the one who chased, who hoped, who needed validation, is gone. You didn't lose her. You released her. And in the process, you found the man you were meant to become. This is what dark masculine energy looks like. Not loud, not aggressive, just solid, silent, certain. If you've walked away without apology, if you've mastered the art of restraint and finally stopped watering dead gardens, hit that like button. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop a comment below. I outgrew the version of me who needed her. This is Stoic Blessing. Be calm, be clear, be untouchable,